We're now live, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome to this meeting of the Digital Transformation Scrutiny Panel for Charnwood Borough Council. There are a number of things I would like to remind people of before we start with the items on the agenda. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the Council's website following the meeting. Under the openness of local government bodies regulations, people may film or record this meeting, and this is outside the Council's control. However, people wishing to film or record the meeting should do so in a way that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. Also, so that the meeting is not disturbed, could I please ask everybody to turn off their mobile phones or switch them to silent to ensure that their environment is distraction free. Can I also remind everybody that this is a public meeting, so please conduct yourself in an appropriate manner. Thank you. As this is a virtual meeting, it will run slightly differently. Members will need to introduce themselves and state their name and confirm that they can see and hear the proceedings. This is important for the purposes of the recording, attendance, and transparency of the meeting. I will do this by undertaking an alphabetical roll call. Say an alphabetical roll call. I'm going to go in the order that they are on my screen for ease. Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Charles, in attendance. I can both see and hear the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. I can both see and hear the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Needham.
Thank you. Yes, I can see and hear the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Seaton.
I can see and hear the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Councillor Rollins, lead member for communications.
Almost transformation.
Thank
you, Chair. I can see and hear proceedings.
Thank you. Kerry Barnshaw, head of strategic development. No, I've not got the list here today.
Kerry Barnshaw, head of customer experience. I can hear and see the proceedings. Thank you.
And then finally, Mike Roberts. Yeah, I'm not going to guess. I'll let you tell us.
That's all right. Mike Roberts, communications manager at the council.
Thank you. So item 1 on the agenda, apologies.
Hi, Chair. There's no formal apologies, but I do notice that Councillor Gerard isn't present in the meeting at the moment.
Okay. We'll wait to see if she arrives. Item 2, minutes from the previous meeting. Can I ask all to confirm whether they've received and read the minutes and if they're happy to be approved? Can I take that as a show of hands? Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. Disclosures of pecuniary and personal interests. Do we have any disclosures? Councillor Seaton.
No, I was just putting my hand up for the minutes.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't get my camera button quick enough.
Not a problem. So I take that as no disclosures. Item 4, declarations of the party whip. I have none to report. Item 5, questions under scrutiny committee procedures 11-16. I've had no questions submitted. Item 6, scrutiny scoping document. Sally, I don't believe there's been any further amendments to my knowledge.
No, Chair, we amended it for the previous meeting. There haven't been any further amendments, so it's just so the committee can, so the panel can just note what's in the scoping document.
Is the panel happy to do so? Again, I'm happy to take a raised hands on that. Thank you. Item 7, panel updates. Carey, do you have any further updates you'd like to share with us from the last meeting?
No, nothing specific. Obviously, the 2 documents there were requested from the last meeting. So there is the digital inclusion in Charm with the full findings and recommendations that I referenced at the previous meeting, obviously for people to review in their own time. And obviously, if there's any queries or questions around that, just as an update, the majority of those actions that from that report have been included in the new customer service strategy, and that's how they'll then be actioned. And then the second document was, again, it was asked at the previous meeting for the details of all of the volumes of the online forms for the last 2 years, and that's what is in that document as well. So again, if there's any queries or questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Brilliant. Does anybody have any questions, Carrie, on that? No, I don't actually have any at the moment either. I think from the end of this meeting, we'll have a bit of a brainstorm following the conversations with Mike, etc. So yeah, are we all happy to take that as noted? Again, I'm happy to take a raise of hands. Thank you. In time that time, Councillor Seaton, thank you.
I'll finish my crisps now so I can leave the camera on.
Item 8, marketing and communications. So I'd like to introduce Mike Roberts, communications manager. Have you got anything that you would like to present to us, Mike, or?
I haven't got anything to present, but I was just going to give you an overview of how we operate and the things we do, and give you sort of I know most of you are familiar with what we do, but just go over some of that ground. Is that okay? And then
absolutely,
I presume the format is you can ask some questions and we'll have a conversation. Yeah. Yeah,
please do.
Okay, so as some of you will be aware, I am the comms manager at the council, and myself and my comms team, we look after all the internal and external communications of the council. So that covers media, social media. For those channels, obviously, we produce the content. So that'll be press releases, video, photos to share on those channels. We also manage our email alerts. We're responsible for the website content. So that's making changes, creating new sections, and working with services to make sure the information is up to date. We're also responsible for print and design. So that means any design work, well, we do some design work in-house, and we sometimes commission that externally, but that could be for a range of campaigns or projects happening across the council. And then we're also responsible for internal communications, which means operating our weekly staff newsletter, our communications with members, organising staff briefings, and looking after sort of other comms channels we use to communicate with colleagues. Just to give you an idea of the kind of scale of some of the things we do. So the media work, we issue about 160, 70 press releases a year. We deal with 170 media inquiries. We have an email alert subscription list of about 15,000, and we issue, over the past year, we've issued about 900 email alerts, and that could be anything about our services, our news stories, or anything like that. We create videos. We look after... On the social media, our following is about 20,000 across Facebook and Twitter. So that's just to give you an idea of the kind of reach we have using our own channels. And the website, we do daily maintenance, working with services to look after the content. In terms of kind of promoting our online services, we do regular updates and regular messages using our emails. So, for example, just reminding people that they can find information about recycling online. They can report things like missed bins online, as well as our news stories. I think that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to take questions or expand on any of that if anybody wishes.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Have any of the councillors got any questions on that for Mike?
Yes, but I don't think it's related at all, Mike. You put out things to do with Charnwood, and then I press share. Bearing in mind, I don't know what to do. I know to press the right buttons, but I don't know. And it's magic. It all works by magic. But what I would like to do is to be able to copy and paste and put it on my page.
Yeah.
Can I do that? I told you it's probably not aligned to this. And I think that's probably what a lot of councillors would like to do, because the format comes up differently when you share it, doesn't it?
Yeah, so if you share it, on social media, it handles it differently. So if we share a post from somebody else, we're kind of highlighting that to others, and the platform will respond to that differently to if you cut and paste it out of a document or out of somebody else's social media platform and pasted it as your own. So you can do either, really. I think the thing is, by sharing it, you're making it clear that you are sharing somebody else's information, which sometimes is beneficial. You can cut and paste, but the format is an issue. But there are kind of ways to
that's the bit I would want to do, because I would want to use the information of Charnwood, and probably a lot of it I'd cut and paste, but I'd like to present it to the people that follow me as a Thurmaston councillor in my way, because I'm not an official body, so my language is different.
Yeah.
Although I would still like the skeleton of it to be Charnwood, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and sometimes it's as easy as copying the text in a social media post and putting it into Notepad if you're on a laptop, which takes all the formatting out of it. Yeah. And then it's much easier to share. On a mobile or a tablet, it might be a bit different. So it kind of depends what device you're looking at. And I'm happy to take this conversation offline and then have a look at that. And if we come up with something where there's a bit of an easy process to follow, then share that with others if it's of use.
I mean, I don't know whether it's just me because I'm not au fait with it all. I don't know whether it's just me that finds it difficult, or it's just me that would find it better if we could come up with a different system. Because then I'd promote Charnwood, but of course at the same time I'd be promoting me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's probably an issue others have, because formatting can be quite difficult. So I'm quite happy to look at how we might sort of create a little process that makes it easy for people. And people share things in different ways. So what works for one doesn't work for others. So I think it's perfectly fine if that's the way you prefer to do it, because ultimately what we want is members and other colleagues and other partners and other people is to share our information and our news. So if they have a different way of doing things that suits them, then that's fine, I think. And if we can assist with that, why not?
And the other thing, so sometimes I need to take something off an email that I've had from you, advertising something or telling me about something. And of course it won't let me. It won't let me copy and paste onto something else. It'll say your organisation won't allow you to do this.
Okay, that could be a restriction on the device. And again, it's probably something to look at outside of this meeting just to see if we can work out a way of overcoming that to make sure people can share. Because as I said, what we want is for people to share our updates and news on our services. Thank you.
Sorry about that if I hijacked you.
Thank you.
But it's all about making it easier for us, isn't it, to use
Absolutely.
the technology.
Councillor Charles.
Thank you. Again, forgive my ignorance if this is something you can't answer or it's too wide-ranging question mark. I've read through the report that we received and I found some of the information in there quite surprising. Mainly the amount of people that we're not able to reach or are not engaging with us. And I just wondered, as sort of communications, how do you actually, not Charnwood, how do you feel that we can bridge that gap to reach more people, particularly if we're going to be looking to funnel people more towards our website? What do you think? What's the way to get them?
It's a difficult one, because I presume we're talking about people who are not digitally savvy and it's not their first port of call. Our main offline channels of reaching those people who perhaps aren't on social or don't use it too much are the local media and the smaller publications. Sometimes it's about using our partners, so who work in the community, to ask them to share messages directly with people who may not be online. And then I think, as with anything, you go back to what do we need to reach these people for, and what do we know about them? So if there's a specific service we think a certain group need to know about, how are we going to reach them? If we feel they may not be online, how can we reach them? And can we use the local media, the traditional print press, or can we be a bit more specific in terms of, can we, identify geographical areas or anything like that, or use partners to try and reach them in those ways? So it's not easy, because the people who aren't online, there's no list to say where they are and who they are. So I think, as with anything with comms, you quite often have to use a mix of different channels. And if it's through print publications, if it's through partners who are in direct contact with people, our own services who are in direct contact with people, and perhaps even the contact centre. So when they do call, it's trying to educate callers about, actually you can do this online, and pointing that out to them to see if they are comfortable doing that. So I don't think it's easy at all.
Yeah, I know that. I think the exact figure was something like 8.8% were unreachable because they can't either get on the internet or they haven't got internet available. But then I noted that it was recommending that we might need up to 120. I think the term was digital champions, which again, it seems like a huge amount of people to sort of focus on getting more people online. And I just wondered how sort of practical that is. Again, coming from a point of no knowledge in this, whether it is practical or not.
Yeah, it certainly sounds a lot, but my understanding is these roles are not kind of full-time jobs. They are, appointing or finding people who perhaps are in roles where they can champion or help others to access digital services. There's probably a bit of incumbents on us all to try and, with friends, family members who we know who may not be internet savvy, and we probably all are doing this at present. And then I think there's always going to be an element of some people who probably won't shift to digital, but I suppose it's trying to identify those ones who would be willing and can be reached to sort of help them.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. I've got a couple of questions. So you mentioned in your opening remarks that we have about a 20,000 following across Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
Do we know approximately what figure that represents of our residents that actually have, that we guess have social media?
Plus age groups.
Plus age groups. Well, there's something, I haven't got the figures to hand about a national, or even a sort of, there are national figures about the percentage of people with social media accounts, but it's very high. So most of our residents, I would say, have social media. The difficulty comes in, we've got 9,000 followers on Twitter and 10,000 followers on Facebook, there and thereabouts. Some of those may be duplicates. It's hard to tell. So I think when we look at other councils, our followings are probably on track, higher than others because we're a bigger borough. Are we reaching everybody? No, we never will. Do we have some data from Facebook that tells us that most of our followers on Facebook are Loughborough based. Our biggest age bracket for following is something like 35 to 44, and then the ones either side above that and below that. And on Facebook, we have more female followers than male. Twitter doesn't give that kind of information. So we've got lots of metrics, but doesn't always give us a complete picture.
Thank you. So from our 20, so how much engagement do we generally get on a post? Because from what I've seen, it's very low, isn't it?
The average post on Facebook, probably around about 1,000 people, so a reach of about 1,000, goes up to 2, 3, goes up to 10, 20,000. So that is, I think, a good reach. But it depends on what depends what the post is about. So Peregrine Falcons yesterday reached about 7,000 or 8,000, a nice sort of human interest piece of content. Other topics might not kind of get that reach, so it varies. So I think the reach is good, but it depends on what the topic is. And the approach we take is, what we're trying to do with our content, particularly on social media, is bring in some engaging content that lots of people can relate to try and build that audience.
Yeah.
So the more people we can get to follow our page, the more people we can reach with some of that content that might have a more serious message, but might not be as overly engaging to lots.
Absolutely. That's almost where my questioning was leading, because my next question was what types of posts generally create the most interactions? And they're never going to be the factual posts. But as we've been speaking about through the other meetings that we've had, it seems one of the things that we need is a hook to be able to draw people in. And from what you've just been saying there, the posts like the Peregrine Falcons seem to be the hook for the social media that help build the audience.
Yeah, and that's it. You're quite right. The kind of the serious stuff and some of the factual stuff isn't going to get the big reach. Sometimes it does, but in the past 12 months, our most popular posts were around the fair. So when Loughborough Fair took place, we had lots of photos, lots of video. And I think the top post of the past 12 months was the fair with something around a reach of about 30,000 on Facebook, and there was good engagement on Instagram. Yeah. So that helps build that audience. And if I've got a figure somewhere, so our Facebook audience grew 13.5% in the past financial year, and Twitter grew 4% in the past financial year. So we track all this, and the growth of our audience has been upwards for quite a few years. That growth is kind of slowing. The pandemic, there was a big spike. We went up on Facebook probably 40% odd. But that growth is slowing, and for me, it's about trying to create that engaging content to grow that audience so we can get the key messages to more people. And I think that's about being a bit creative, being very engaging, using some content that isn't necessarily core about our services, but making sure we are getting our core information out regularly to try and reach people.
Absolutely. So my last question on this is, how do we then use social media to funnel users back to our website and encourage website use?
So we put out regular posts about our online services and specific services. But what I think we need, and I'm looking at the council's annual communications plan for the next year, and I think we do need a specific campaign about our online services. I think there's a couple of things really. For me, I think we need to take a look at perhaps what we're getting a lot of phone calls about, and what sort of phone calls can be funneled onto the website, accepting that not all transactions can be completed online, and trying to build a campaign or communications messages to convince the people who are phoning up to go online and use the website. And if we understand what those key areas and key phone calls are about, then we can target our messages to those specific services.
Has anybody else got any questions they'd like to ask?
Just a quick one, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Hamilton.
Have you got plans? Because you talked about what actually gets sites like the Peregrine Falcons, and that kind of drives viewership, as it were. Is there any plans of kind of leveraging the Platinum Jubilee just to kind of build followership? That is having lots and lots of things that will just engage attention, and then they just get used to following the Charnwood Borough kind of Facebook and Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, we try to leverage everything, and the Jubilee coming up is a good opportunity. So we are looking at our content at the moment, and particularly around what the council will be doing, and that is just starting to build, I think, in terms of, because the closer it gets, the more the general interest it will take. So in the lead up, we'll be promoting what the council are doing and what communities are doing to try and make sure we're involved in that conversation, because as you say, that sort of energy into that event will grow and that interest will grow. And anything like that where we can, if we've got content to share, which will be engaging and will reach people and encourage them to then follow the council more, it is exactly what we want to do. So events like Jubilee are a good opportunity. Looking back at the figures for Love Prefer in terms of social media, again, it's quite clear that there was lots of engagement, and so next year we want to make sure we are capitalising on that to get more people to follow our channels and subscribe to our emails, because when we need to tell them information about planning, recycling, business grants, anything like that, we've got that bigger following.
Thank you. Councillor Needham, did you have a question?
More of a comment, really. My main sort of like thinking on this was kind of like what was covered before about the people that we can't get and what we can do, and appreciate that's really, really difficult. But sort of anecdotally, like I think we find a lot as members when we're out talking to, residents in our wards and things like that, I get quite a lot of people that are digitally excluded who then sort of say, oh, I'm on the phone for ages trying to get a bulky waste collection, and I will say to them, if you can manage to do it online, that literally takes 5 minutes because it is so easy, and that often makes people come round. So I wonder if we can perhaps push that aspect of, it will make it so quick and simple for you. And the other comment was more of a sort of a compliment, really, that I thought that there's been a few posts that I've seen, can't remember exactly which ones, but I think from memory, like Halloween and changes to bins during the really bad weather. And I'm almost certain that it was saying on the social media comms, like, please pass on this message to neighbours who don't use it. And I thought that was quite handy, actually, because not everybody will think of that, but when they're prompted, they will think, oh yeah, my next door neighbour, she doesn't use the internet, I'd better pop round and tell her. And I thought that was quite a good way of trying to include digitally excluded people using the digital tools. Does that make sense?
It does, and if it's okay, I'll come back. So on the emphasising the speed and the ease of the online, when we look at this campaign later in the year, that I think that's going to be one of the key messages, because personally speaking, I much prefer to do things online because I know I can do it when I want, and it'll probably be quicker. And I know the likelihood is it might take a bit longer on the phone, but I know there's quite a few people who prefer the phone method. So I think it's key to get that message across to them that it is a lot easier. This is going to save you time and be a simpler process for you. So that will be definitely one of the messages. Pass it on to neighbours and things like that. I think that we learned that from the pandemic, when we had to get lots of information out there, and there was lots of information to share most days, to be honest, early in the pandemic, about our services and about everything else. And it became apparent, or it certainly became useful to flag that message up, to make sure you tell your neighbours, your relatives, or anybody you may think who won't be following us on social or isn't digitally skilled, to tell them about this information, because it's important for them. So that's something I think we've learned in the past couple of years and will continue.
Thank you. Councillor Charles.
Thanks, Chair. Just following on from what Laurie was saying there, Mike, I got asked a question a couple of weeks ago at a parish meeting by a resident about their, I think they were running a gardening club event or something, and they wanted to promote that. Is there a channel for sort of local, groups and whatever to actually, I don't know, get onto piggybacking onto what you're doing through Charm, like a what's on at the weekend sort of link or something like that. I think, again, just to possibly build that both ways. Is there any sort of openings there? There may already be, I don't know. I'm just asking the question. Thanks.
Yeah, we have a what's on section on the council website, which some people use, and it's of a certain use. We send out a what's on email probably monthly and do a roundup of events largely we're involved in, but it does spread out to other events. So I think, and probably the most useful is to tag us in on social media if they're on social media, because that just makes it easy for us and easy for everybody. So if they post something on Facebook or Twitter and they tag us in, we see it, and if it's a community event, we'll happily share it. So I think if they've got social profiles, get them to tag us in. That helps. If they haven't and want to drop a line to the comms email, we will see what channels we can share things on.
Yeah, it might be something that we need to get out on comms again, because our parish weren't aware that they could that route was available to them. But it might be something that just maybe we need to jog the memory a little bit, because again, you're trying to build an audience, aren't you? And potentially that might be a way of getting a few on there.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like a good idea to contact the parishes to highlight that to them. Because as I say, if events and things have got social media profiles, it's really easy to do. It's probably just asking them or reminding them of that. If they want to contact us directly, we can have those conversations, and it goes back to the more engaging the content we produce, the more people we get to follow, the more we can reach directly about our key messages. Yeah,
I think maybe the parishes might be a good route as well, because I know this particular lady, she would be falling to doesn't use the internet category, but she would go to the parish and speak to the parish clerk and ask her what she could do. So again, you're generating it through a different thing, but you are potentially reaching people that are not currently engaging. So yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Mike? If not, I will draw this item to a close. Thank you very much, Mike, for your feedback and your help and your input. It's been very much appreciated. You're welcome to stay, but happy if you wish to leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sally, do we need to note anything for that, or are we happy just to move on to item 9?
Yes, Chair, that's fine. The panel does note the information, I presume, that they've just had, so we're okay to move on.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Item 9, developing the survey. So from the last meeting, I know we were thinking about questions to be included. Apologies, Kerry. Was this something as well that you were going to look at? Was this? I don't recall whether or not this was something that you were going to look at as well.
Well, what I said is I'd in my recent time at Northwest, we had done a survey, and I could share that information, which I have got.
Yes.
I didn't have it in time actually, because I had to get it. I finished with Northwest and had to go and ask their permission to get it.
Okay.
So I have got it, which I can, I can share. I can either send it now for people to have a look at, or obviously you can, utilise it afterwards. That was just some questions that were done towards the end of last year that then helped to inform actually their customer service strategy. So I have got that information if it's of use.
Okay. Have any of the members got any questions or any ideas for the survey that they would like to propose? So, Councillor Needham.
So my question, and I apologise if this was covered at the previous meeting that I wasn't at, how is the survey going to be, what form is it going to take? So who will it go to and how will it go to them?
It's a good question. It's not something that I know. So, Carey, are you familiar with how we distribute this, or would this be something that Mike might?
There's lots of different ways of doing it. To be honest, when it really depends on the scale of the survey that you want to do. Mike does generally do a lot of the surveys, but quite often when we're doing anything major, we have to outsource to an external company, because it's not just about obviously getting the surveys out there, it's about the data analysis of the information that came back. So the survey that I've just talked about, we paid an external company. It cost about £10,000 or £12,000 to do it, and the same. I know for the customer surveys that Mike has done, the big ones that we do, the sort of resident survey, that's outsourced to an external company as well, and at similar type costs. So it really depends of the scale of type of survey that you're wanting to do. I mean, the difficulty is obviously if you just put something online, you're only going to get responses from people that are online. So we've obviously, if it depends what we're wanting to find out from the survey, as to which way we can do it. But surveying is a resource intensive piece of work. So that I just explained, that was on the website, that was emailed out, but we also had, the company went out and did face-to-face interviews, in the street in a couple of the different towns on different occasions, and they did telephone interviews as well to make sure, they got a really good representation of different ages and groups and people with different skills, etc., in order to make sure that it was a worthwhile survey and the results were meaningful. So it, as I say, I think for me it's almost what is it that you're asking, what is it that you're looking to try and find out, to then understand what type of scale of survey it's going to be and the approach that needs to be taken.
Do any Councillor Charles?
Yeah, I think possibly Kerry's answered a couple of my questions there already. I think, are we sure where we are looking to get with this? Are we looking for a survey to enforce what we're sort of been discussing, and I think the route that we were looking at over the last sort of few meetings, or are we looking to get a general view of the residents as to what they think is what we need? I think we really need to have quite a focused thing, because paying somebody £10,000 to generate some information that are we going to really be using it? It seems quite excessive. So I think I need to understand where we are looking to go with this and what we're looking to prove, really. Thank you.
From my understanding, what we're trying to ascertain is whether or not our residents feel like they're missing out by not having the ability to log in. I don't think there's many services that we can provide that require that login. So the main customer base I think that could benefit from it would be council tenants, and then it's whether or not that's able to be tied through with the accounts for things like rent or logging repairs, etc. Other than that, I don't think there's much of a customer base for a front end for things like bulky waste collections that can be done through the forms and promotion of those. Kerry Bornshaw.
Yeah, so just in terms of what you mentioned there about our tenants, I think at the beginning, a couple of meetings ago, and I did my update, I did say we are working with Peter Oliver, head of landlord services, in terms of a portal specifically for tenants that will allow them to see their rent account, etc. And repairs can already be reported online. So there is already a mechanism for doing that then comes through. So there is, when you're focusing on that area, that is actually something that's already in progress in terms of having a tenants portal. That's something we're working on at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Seaton.
Thank you. It's something that I would be very much against, costing £10,000 plus to carry out a survey where I can't see there'll be any benefit, real benefit. And I don't know necessarily that's what we were asked to look at, was it, through the from what I see, we're just trying to make it easier to use digital transformations. We're not aiming at it to get people that aren't digitally minded, because if they aren't digitally minded, they're not digitally minded. Why should we make them so? And of course, Charnwood already provides the service for people that can't do it digitally.
Yes, yeah. So the basis of this scrutiny group was to understand whether or not there was a need for a front-end blogging portal. And then we explored the options of whether that should be coupled with an application, which, following the research done by the committee, I think we're satisfied that there's not a need for an application. It's whether or not there's still a requirement for a front-end portal and what recommendations we can make to Cabinet. So I think we know where we're at personally. It's what do our customers think and what do our customers need, which is the question that we wanted to ask. But where this is leading, I do feel that, like you say, to spend X amount of money, to spend any money on a survey for a front-end portal for the limited services, for the ease of filling out a form, because it would still be effectively this, they'd still be undertaking the same thing, but logged in first, so they might not have to put their name and address in. I think that would, I completely agree. I think that would be a waste of money and resources. The fact that we've already got something going on for our council tenants, is there anything else that we could ask residents that they would like to be able to access and tailor some sort of survey to that? And then it could be done on a much more reduced scale that is for the digitally minded already. For instance, would our residents like to see a more elaborate what's on page, so that we've got a hook back to the website? Would that if we're getting people to the website, we can then advertise some more of our services, etc., and try and get people in? Or are we just saying now that we don't feel there's a need for a survey, and we don't really feel there's a need for a front-end login, and our recommendations to Cabinet are just going to be that we work towards optimizing the website to be more app-like, is how we described it, but to improve the user experience and simplify it as much as possible? Kerry Barnshaw, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, essentially where you're getting to is kind of where what's been built into both the ICT strategy and the customer service strategy. So that the kind of investigation work kind of concludes the work that officers have done in terms of, we're obviously planning to replace the website in 2023, and we'll obviously be working through that this year in order to do that. And what it sounds like you're saying is actually you're supportive of that approach after, doing this piece of work, that we are moving in the right direction. There's been, a member input into that, and actually, you've scrutinized almost what that strategy is doing, and come to the conclusion that actually, as an organization, the strategy is fulfilling the needs of what we want to do, which is do as much as we can online while retaining that support for those customers that won't. So, all of the digital inclusion work that we're doing to bring as many people online, the replacement of the website, the continual transformation and development of the e-forms, etc., that is the direction the organization is moving in. So from my perspective, it feels like you're supporting the work that's kind of already in train, really.
Yes. Does anybody else have any comments?
Yes, Chair. I think one of the things we're clearly looking at is still we want to, where possible, drive traffic to using online where possible, and therefore that's the kind of simplifying thing. So could we not also look at, because if you hear people sort of complain how long they're on the phone to try and get bulky waste, whatever. Can we also look at a communication strategy that goes along with the updating of the website that kind of highlights that it's now easier to do things that people aren't perhaps even aware they can do online, and also for it to be a kind of mobile phone friendly. Because I see a lot of people that say they're not tech savvy, they're actually very savvy on a mobile phone. It's one of the things one of the lessons we'll go up from this, and therefore rather than phoning they can actually use a mobile phone to kind of quickly go online and get no bulky waste or bin that's not been emptied or whatever and things like that. So a communication strategy that goes along with a simplified website that kind of drives traffic to people going online.
So in terms of item 9, developing the survey, are we making a proposal now to not have a survey? Is that the consensus of the committee? Can I get a show of hands for everyone that, yeah. So Sally, how do we stand with that now? If we've had it proposed and accepted by the committee that we no longer pursue a survey, is that just noted?
Yes, I mean, I will change that in the scoping document and obviously bring that back to the next meeting, but that's fine. You can decide that you no longer want to do a survey.
Could we not highlight the reasons why?
That will be in the minutes. It won't need to go in the scoping document, but I'll obviously minute that the panel just did not feel that there was a need.
So that draws us on to item 10, which is the work programme and key task planning, which opens up the question of forming the conclusion we have to date. What does that leave as a work plan? Because I think the meeting is almost naturally drawn itself to, the committee is almost naturally drawn itself to a close, I think, at this point. Is there anything else? I know Councillor Hamilton made the suggestion about the communications and helping to drive traffic to the website still.
I mean, I'd like to make the suggestion that members are used more to promote Charnwood. Can
you elaborate on that? So,
well, I've not got the following that Charnwood has, and so on and so forth. But I've got people, and so Laurie, Councillor Hamilton, and I know Birstall's got quite a good presence online. And I just think that we've got a valuable asset in members because we are local and we can pick out, point out, section out particular parts of posts that are coming from Charnwood that would, I mean, Bluebell Wood, we're promoting that at the moment, Charnwood Waters, isn't it? Go because of the bluebells, etc. But we could personalise that and make it, we could put a map on there and say, you know, I've been, it's brilliant. Please go, it's not far, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Because I could put it in my language and promote it instead. So I think we're missing a trick, really, not using 52 members. I know not all of them are necessarily active, but I think we could be.
Yeah. Councillor Needham.
I was actually thinking earlier almost exactly what Brenda said, and I completely agree with her. But I'd also like to add to it slightly is that, yes, I think we could kind of make a role for members in this, because we do have lots of interactions with lots of different members of the public, often face to face, and not just promoting like those things that you mentioned, Brenda, but also talking to people and like in that report, and how we're going to say to people when they're accessing other services, are you online? Can you get online? If you can't, this is an easy way to access it. So I think there's a role for members there again as well as just online, but offline, and talking to our residents and letting them know how they can access, trying to sort of say, well, if you did it online, it'd be dead easy. Would you like me to show you, for example? Or, you know, giving members information about where we can signpost people to, like the groups that are reaching out to the digitally excluded. So 100% I'm in full agreement with Brenda that I think we should say that there's a role for members here as well.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Kerry.
Sorry if I just may, Councillor Needham, that's exactly almost what we are talking about when we talk about digital champions. Members actually having the opportunity to be digital champions. It doesn't necessarily mean your digital skills have to be good, because obviously everybody's got different skills, but it's about championing our digital service, and where possible, if you are able to help a customer, absolutely. But that really embodies the role of what we're looking to do with digital champions, and members sit in an absolutely brilliant place to be able to embody that. So I'm completely supportive of that approach.
Thank you. Councillor Charles.
Yeah, just following on from that, is that not a perfect example of a training programme that we should be getting members to do? And maybe that should go to committee. Sorry,
that could be the recommendation to committee. Yes, to cabinet. Sorry, Councillor Needham.
Yeah, I was going to say, again, if members are not active online, like Brenda mentioned, maybe, training would be perfect, wouldn't it, for those that are not, to kind of be able to do that themselves?
I think it is quite a scary thing for a lot of members. I mean, I know when I joined the council, I went and picked my iPad up and they gave us a bit of training how to get into it, and then basically off you go, and that is it. And I probably fall into the same class as Brenda. It scares me a little bit that I might put the wrong thing in the wrong place. And a bit of training really would benefit that. I think gives you a bit of confidence as well, doesn't it, to use it more. So so definitely I'd be up for that.
Thank you.
Plus, we also need to be aware that we're not separate parties when we're promoting Charnwood. We're Charnwood, and we've all got our own websites for that kind of thing. So that also needs to be impacted on people as well, that we can't promote ourselves. It's for promoting Charnwood and the services of Charnwood.
This discussion has made me think whether or not Charnwood could create Facebook pages for each ward that are managed by Charnwood and then tagged into, that we can also have access to, and whether or not there is any feasibility around there. Sorry, Councillor Rollings.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that, because I think the officers have to play a fine balance between kind of getting too involved in us politically, and it could almost be seen as them, getting involved to support us as political candidates, and then I think it'll be a problem during PERDA and things like that. So, and I wouldn't like the idea of the comms team having another 20-30 Facebook profiles to manage, but I completely support the idea of members getting some training. I know there was some social media training a couple of years ago, but I think that was more about what you should or shouldn't post online rather than how to actually use it. So I think the key takeaway is, it could be good to get some training, actually to sit down with people with your laptops out. This is what Twitter's about. This is what Facebook's about. This is what Instagram's about. So I know, Brenda's mentioned our Birstall page. We have one Facebook page for our ward, and some videos that we were putting out during lockdown were getting sort of 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 views on them. So there's definitely an asset that the comms team and the council can tap into in councillors. And I think that spreading the message is good. And going back to the document that Kerry put in earlier about the number of interactions online and numbers of forms used, it's absolutely massive, the number of people now that are using the online forms. And I think part of our role is going to be, especially once the new website's live, directing people to that and saying, well, actually, you can do so much more on our website now, because lots of people are still yet to unlock the potential of that. So although there are massive numbers on those forms, I'd imagine if we're sat here in 2-3 years' time, the numbers will probably dwarf what they are at the moment, even though they're huge compared to what they were a few years ago. So I completely support member training. And I think that is something that could be taken away from this panel.
Thank you. So other than the recommendation for training, Councillor Hamilton, your comments around the communication, are you happy that that's covered within the training?
I think part of that, yes, I think overlaps with the training, because part of the communicating strategy, because it's about driving use, and that would be one of the roles that could come out of as councillors as digital champions.
Is there anything that you feel isn't covered from that you'd still like to see?
Well, I think within the communications team themselves is once they have updated the website, they have to also kind of promote what is changed and how easy it is to use. So it's there'll be official Charnwood communications and then individual councillors championing that.
Yeah.
So
okay,
I think it's covered.
So Sally, how do we now move forward?
So that's all noted, Chair, that discussion. I'm just wondering whether members have got anything else in particular that they might want to look at the next meeting, because otherwise at the next meeting we can just look at developing recommendations as a final meeting. So unless anyone else has got anything they want to view, or if they want any more presentations or anything, not sure if there's anything else.
So that's going to be the only item on the next agenda, and that's going to be the final meeting then, isn't it, Salah?
Yes, if there's nothing else, Chair.
Yeah. So is the committee happy with that? I get a show of hands, please. Yeah.
Just my hand, yeah. Can I just ask, Kerry, and I do apologise if I've missed this. I know that Charnwood are doing you're looking into this anyway, and we're doing a report on it. Am I right, Kerry, or is it that way or that way?
On which bit?
On our on digital transformation, not on what we're doing, but you were looking into the whole aspect of our digital presence.
Kerry, I think your
Am I right on that?
dropped because you're frozen and we're getting very intermittent sound from you.
Am I right on that then, Matthew? Or...
There's various, well,
there's a transformation program,
right.
and that there's no kind of one particular document or policy that we can go, this is our plan. But there's a working group of officers that Kerry is obviously very involved in. She can comment on more than me, that meet quite regularly, and that's looking at everything from kind of case management to talking about the new websites, talking about online forms. So I think the way that the chief exec has presented it is that it's not a particular thing, it's almost everything. So it's everything that we do, we try to think about how can we do that in a different way. Could it be more digital? Are there opportunities for savings as a result of being more digital? So it's almost not a particular document that you can go, this is our plan. It's just everything we're doing is being looked at. But there are specific groups set up, or there is a specific group of officers set up, which Kerry might comment more on, specifically to look at digital transformation in Charnwood.
Yeah, have I connected back in now? Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously under the SWAT board, SWAT, the first one stands for services, and that's the service reviews that we've been looking at in terms of transformation. So we've got a programme of works initially for at least the next 12 months, because that'll be reviewed as part of their leadership review that's happening as well. So we have got a programme of works, but alongside that, as I've touched on already, the ICT strategy sets out, in terms of what we're doing both internally and externally over the next 3 years, and the customer service strategy. Those two documents together really set out as an organisation what we're going to be doing for our customers, digitally and non-digitally as well. And they feed in obviously to that transformational activity. So yes, as a whole, the whole organisation is looking at how we can change, improve and be more efficient, essentially in everything that we do. And there are key projects that run through that, but it is just a fundamental way that the organisation is moving. It's a constant, continuous process of improvement and checking what we do. Every time a system comes up, the contract comes up, we'll look at reviewing it, do we need that system? Can we utilise a system we've got? There's all of the rationalisation, the CRM, that's going to need changing. So we look at what we can do there, the website, etc. So that is a kind of just, as Councillor Rollins has said, it's an ongoing piece of work, but those strategies kind of really underpin that work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think that draws the meeting to a close then. So yeah, thank you all for your time today and your input. I think it's I'm surprised by where we've got to quite so quickly from where I expected. It has been a learning curve. Like Kerry said, it's the scrutiny that we've done very much seems to support the work that's already been done by officers. So it's it's really nice to see that we are aligned. So yeah, thank you very much. The next meeting will be the 30th of May. So see you all then.